UAlbany football begins their season tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at Bob Ford Field. The Danes taking on Holy Cross, and we're talking to Zach By today, UAlbany broadcaster. We have him on a lot. Zach, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Zach, UAlbany coming off a 1-11 season last year, but prior to that, they'd been a dynasty in the Northeast Conference. They've got a new coach, Greg Gattuso, who comes to the Danes via experience at Maryland. They've got a new athletic director hired just 2 weeks ago in Mark Benson. This is the time to buy UAlbany stock, is it not?
Yeah, for sure. And for the longest time, Albany had dominated their previous conference, the NEC, on average of winning the championship every other year for a decade straight. And then they hop up, from the third lowest level of Division I FCS football as far as ratings go in conference to the number one. Think of it like, the SEC of FCS football is the CAA. So, yeah, they're coming off a down year, but you talk about something that you just alluded to, the new coach who brings in a tremendous pedigree. Greg Gattuso, as a player, won a national championship at Penn State under Joe Paterno, went on to coach at Duquesne as a head coach for a bunch of years in the NEC. So he had tremendous success there, and then he jumped up to the FBS level. Was an assistant to the head coach at Pitt. Was an assistant to the head coach at Maryland. So he comes in with a lot of experience, and he brought in a coaching staff with a ton of high-level experience, including the National Football League. So yeah, you're right. You couple that with the new athletic director and the new stadium. There's a lot of good things happening despite the one-win season last year. They say about stocks, buy low, sell high. This is a stock that in the past has proven to be legitimate and sturdy, but it did have a dip last year. But, yeah, now is the time to get back on. They have a chance to do something pretty special here in the next couple of years.
So realistically, Zach, you're around the team all the time. What are the expectations for this UAlbany team?
I think it's to be competitive right now. If there's one overall philosophy or mantra that Greg Gattuso has brought with him here to the University at Albany, is you're not going to concede to anyone. I don't care if it's James Madison, Villanova, Delaware. It doesn't matter because we're the new kid on the block. We're not going to roll over and pat ourselves in the back when we lose by a score. They're ready to win games right now. The way their schedule sets up, they have an opportunity in the non-conference with the non-conference opponents to register some victories early, feel that mojo a little bit as they go into conference play. The expectation, realistically, I think, in my own personal opinion, it would be a raging success if they were to go 500 this year. If you look at the quality opponents that they're going to play week in, week out, I think that would, if you look at it objectively, you'd say, wow, that'd be doing something if they were able to go 500. Because the schedule's tough. I mean, Brady, it's one thing to get up for Delaware in 2007 and knock off a top 25 team when Joe Flacco was the quarterback. It's easy to, I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's less difficult to get up for a one-time experience like that instead of the way it is now, where you got Delaware on a Saturday, and then 7 days later you got Towson, and then 7 days later you got James Madison. That's a draconian schedule throughout the year. So I think the expectation for me personally, if they were to get 500, we would chalk it up at the university as a large success for sure.
One thing, Zach, I'm always curious about from a coaching standpoint, one thing that really interests me I want to ask you about. New coaches come in, they have their own styles. They have their systems. They want to impart that right away. But you have a group of players that's been under Bob Ford's system for so long. How quick is the turnaround going on Greg Gattuso bringing in his way of thought? Is he keeping some of the old and implementing some of the new? Is it a total switch?
That's a great question, Brady. I talked to Coach Gattuso about this just about 48 hours ago, and I'm asking him his philosophy. What type of maturation process was there in the last 6 months or so since he was brought on in December and really had a chance to meet the team thereafter? And he said that it really hasn't been as noteworthy as you think it would be. Luckily for the guys that are returning players on this team, we're used to Bob Ford's traditional style of run first, be a disciplined team. And Coach Gattuso told me, he's like, listen, I know in college football right now it's very popular to, run the spread offense and throw the ball, 50 times a game. You're not going to see that a whole heck of a lot from UAlbany this year. They're going to stay true to that sort of philosophy and those attributes that Bob Ford had laid foundation for so long. Run the football, be disciplined, no penalties, be a hard-nosed football team. So luckily for those guys coming back, it wasn't a polar opposite yin and yang type scenario. So they were able to adjust rather quickly.
How much recruiting was Greg Gattuso able to do? Obviously, he gets hired in December. When you're talking about football, he really probably wasn't able to even get started attempting to recruit until January after New Year's. That's pretty late in the game. Was he able to get any of his guys in?
Yeah, he was, actually. Luckily, he was recruiting kids for a long period of time when he was at Maryland and had established a good enough relationship with some of those guys that they're now at the University at Albany. And you don't have to look too much further than a guy that I think Great Danes fans are going to know his name by maybe mid-season is a kid, Josh Contreras from Ligonor High School in Maryland, was recruited by Coach Gattuso, came up here with Coach Gattuso when he made his decision and committed to the University at Albany. And this is a kid who has got, CAA type of player that he was able to bring in, and you're looking at is going to play as a freshman right away, which is always a telltale sign. How soon are these kids going to get action? That usually speaks to their raw ability and talent. Josh Contreras, the kid that was recruited by Coach Gattuso and brought in and will play right away and will likely have an impact in the downfield passing game with Will Fiocchi, who's a fifth-year senior. So you ask about the recruiting. They have 8 kids that are freshmen in their 2-deep right now. So that also speaks to the kids that he brought on right away. So I don't think it was push the panic button, bring in whoever we can. They were very smart with the scholarship money they divided up, and I think there's still some left on the back burner. They're not ready to just throw it out there. He's being a little bit more calculated with his approach, but he was able to get some of those kids in.
UAlbany opens with Holy Cross tomorrow, 6 p.m. We're talking to Zach By here on 1045theteam.com. Zach, what are the keys to the game tomorrow?
Well, I think a quick start. It sounds a little bit elementary or dumbed down that maybe a junior high kid will be able to say, hey, good start's important. But if you remember from last year when they opened up at Bob Ford Field, they went through the entire first half with I think maybe 1 first down, and they really struggled. And I thought their confidence moving forward was jarred a little bit. And I think if you come out here against this Patriot League opponent, which if you're comparing or juxtaposing raw talent to raw talent, UAlbany's guys should be more talented than these guys, and you couple that with the coaching that they were able to bring in, I think they should be able to put a win in their pocket early on. But I think, to your question, that's going to start in the first quarter. I think a big start will be important, and not only for the team, Brady, will the big start be important, but for the fans there. I remember there was over 11,000 people there last year for their opening game, and through the first hour and a half, they didn't really have anything to cheer about. I think when you get 10, 11,000 people behind you in the first and second quarter and are really enthralled and engaged in what's going on in the field, that's only going to bode well for a home field advantage for UA.
Zach, last question, and we're going to switch gears on you real quick. Yesterday, I talked to Tom Herter, the Siena Saints basketball broadcaster, with the release of the MAC schedule. Do you know when UAlbany's hoop schedule is going to be finalized yet?
You know what? I do not know. I know that they've sort of released it in a smattering type release. Some of the games there. We got Providence early on in the schedule. I'm going to be blessed enough, Brady, to be out in Las Vegas to do the UNLV game over Thanksgiving break. So that's going to be a good one of note. But the complete schedule, you're probably not going to see for another week or two. But hopefully it's sooner than later, because I'm like you. I'm ready to find out not only who they're playing, but where the heck I'm going. Around the Northeast and around the country here moving forward. But we do know a couple of games, the Siena game being one of them, of course.
That Siena UAlbany game will be December 13th. We know that you'll be there. I'll be there as well. Zach, thanks for joining us. Enjoy UA football first. We'll get to you many more times throughout the year.
I appreciate you having me on, brother. Take care.